Here are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. Nearly 3 years after the 2020 election, we are still learning about voter fraud in key battleground states. In Michigan, the Attorney General just said that an investigation into 10,000 voters was forwarded to the FBI. It wouldn't have changed the outcome, however, between Trump and Biden. Democrats have a new reason to dump President Biden. Many believe that the sour economy would be better if he's defeated, presumably by a Republican, and likely Donald Trump. North Korea has acknowledged that it has AWOL Army Private Travis King and says he bolted across the border because he faced racism and inequality back home. And we might have a reason for why former NFL star Michael Oher, the subject of the Blindside movie, is being so nasty to his adoptive family. He's trying to promote a book and needs attention-grabbing headlines. For stories like these and more updates all day long from your favorite news outlets, go to offthepress.com.
Everyone, welcome to Stinchfield. We begin tonight with our coverage of what is going on in Maui. I cannot let this story drop. Adds up on this island as I look at the response that can only be described as gross criminal negligence. People died because the people and government on this island was not ready. And God forbid something was purposeful here. They are talking now about the power lines started this fire. I am still not ruling out arson when you have this fire starting in three of the most wealthy areas on the island and the fears of a Maui land grab going on. But don't forget, it could be a combination of both. You could have arson and you could have power lines going down. You could have the power lines going down on purpose. Now, don't forget, when I talk about gross criminal negligence on behalf of the government and government officials, you had sirens that didn't sound. That doesn't add up. And now we're learning escape routes were blocked by police, leading people back towards the fire. How in the world does something like this happen?
Were there any warning sirens that you heard? Was there any evacuation order?
None at all. No sirens. There were no text messages. There were no police, firemen come by. The only reason I knew there was a fire because I saw people running for their life in smoke. Even I turned on the radio after we got in the car, and we didn't hear anything until 15 minutes later. And even the radio station we're listening to was just evacuate. No direction. Yeah, unfortunately, all of our routes were basically blocked by police, and it pigeonholed and forced us down into Lahaina town on Front Street, which is an absolute death trap.
Folks, blocked not by down power lines, not by down trees, blocked by police, pigeonholing them into Lahaina, onto Front Street that saw the worst of devastation? How does that happen? And that's not a one-off story. Listen to this.
Also, where we're staying, a lot of people are having issues of getting out. A lot of people were supposed to leave today, yesterday. They can't leave because when you leave our complex to head south of Lahaina, all the roads are blocked off.
All the roads are blocked off. You got to get people out. I've been on Maui. I've vacationed there. There's not a lot of roads going inland. Everything surrounds the ocean. You go down around on the coastline. You got to let people out. That didn't happen. Then I get word that the water was cut off. Now, the official word is that under extreme heat, the water lines failed under extreme heat. I don't know. I want someone to investigate. Whatever it is, in this day and age, we shouldn't have the water failing. We shouldn't have fire trucks unable to find fire hydrants that are out of water. How is that happening in this day and age? No water. Roll the next cut.
Russ, who lived in his home for 40 years, said he and neighbors fought all day to keep the fire from spreading.
We had a hard time holding it back, but we were winning the game. And then the water turned off. And then there wasn't anything we could do. Then the sparks were blowing up out of the gulch.
Folks, this reminds me of everything that happens when you have liberals in charge. Let's review this. You got no sirens. You have blocked roads by police, pigeonholing people back into the fire. You now have no water. Then I read that the fire chief on Maui and the emergency management director are both off the island at the time. This is according to a local newspaper that reads, neither Maui's fire chief nor its top emergency management official were on the Valley Isle on Tuesday, despite the wildfires there being well underway. Ventura, who is the fire chief there, however, was off island during the blaze and didn't return to Maui until the morning after on Wednesday. According to Maui County Communications Director Mahina Martin, Martin wouldn't say where Ventura had been. So you got your top emergency management leader. You've got the fire chief, both off the island before the fire starts. Now, I don't know about coincidences. I don't believe in coincidences. But you then had feds blocking insulin shipments through all of this. This all adds together, leads me to say, what's going on? And when I tell you, it reminds me of liberal leadership, because everything they do, you're left thinking, this is the thing you would do if you were trying to have the absolute worst outcome. Turn off the water. Don't sound the sirens. Send text messages when the cell phone towers are down. Stop insulin shipments. This is like what's going on the border. On the border here in the United States, they do everything you would do to think you were trying to ruin America by literally opening up the border. This is liberal leadership, or it's nefarious. So I warned of the great Maui land grab. I warned that it would come. I called for a moratorium on all sales and development. The governor needed to step in and do this. Well, this is one local saying the phone lines are already being lit up by the developers calling.
I am so frustrated with investors and realtors calling the families who lost their home, offering to buy their land. How dare you do that to our community right now? Hearing since yesterday that multiple families that I know personally were reached out and offered money from investors and realtors. Shame on you.
So conservatives go crazy over the great Maui land grab after this fire. You would think the governor would want to rest the minds of the locals at ease. I'm calling on the governor to call a special session so you can put a moratorium on sales to developers. Instead, it's not about sales to developers. He said the state's going to come get your land. Listen to this.
I'm already thinking about ways for the state to acquire that land so that we can put it into workforce housing, to put it back into families, or to make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial to people who were lost.
Everything you would think a government entity, elected official shouldn't do during the Maui fires, after the Maui fires, these liberals are doing. It's insanity watching this unfold, and people are hurting. Americans are hurting. Well, joining the show now is the owner of Trilogy Excursions. He used his boat to help with rescue efforts during the fires, literally loading people onto his boat to save them because government response was really non-existent. Riley Kuhn is with us. Riley, welcome to the program.
Hey, guys.
Riley, are you amazed at the lack of response, the ineffectiveness of government here?
I think we're all pretty amazed and still in shock. I wasn't quite sure what this news show was about until just hearing it now, and I'm hearing your punch coming through. There's a lot of anger out there. That's that's for sure happening. I'll just tell you what our responses were. You know, we're a 50-year-old Maui boat company. We're woven in the fabric of our community here. My grandparents fell in love with this island, and we've just always held our community in high standards. Our home base is in Lahaina. We lost 2 generational houses in the fire as well. We displaced my sister, and so we've suffered some of that loss, but thank God none of our staff, none of our family perished. We're just so thankful for all the blessings they gave us. But that first night when we hear that this was happening, the Coast Guard actually had to call out for help to one of our captains. They says if there's any boats that are available to assist. They got to keep in mind, it's blowing 80-mile-an-hour winds out there. It's terrifying to get the boats even moving them. They're all tucked in for the night. So we decided, let's mobilize, got about 6 or 7 staff and the Coast Guard representative on the boat, and we headed out to Lahaina. About 2 miles from the shore, we could feel the heat coming off the land, and I'm never going to forget it. It was like going into Dante's Inferno. We got there around midnight, and yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you know, you mentioned the Coast Guard. My sister was one of the first to ask me. She says, my gosh, where's the Coast Guard to help these people that are floating in the water? And this is the spirit of Americans, man. You springing into action, the people that work for your company, when your homes are burning down and you're helping others. God bless you, Riley. And I can only imagine the fear in your mind headed towards the shore as you can feel the heat getting hotter as you're getting closer and closer.
Sure. We have a really awesome little Coast Guard station here on Maui. We're not Oahu. We're not the main central island. So we only have 2 small boats. In fact, they're right here next to me. And they were out there early. They were rescuing people. But since there's such a small boat, they couldn't make the long trip back to this safe harbor. So that's when they told us, would you be this a place where we can bring survivors to? And that was a good little coordination. So I do got to say that working with our Coast Guard in that first night, it was pretty awesome. You know, they were asking for help and we were responding. Now we were there waiting. We had some small young children. One of my staff swam into the shore with swimming gear. We sent a bunch of flotation. We're a snorkel boat company. We're used to taking people snorkeling, and here we are trying to think how we can get people from shore out to our boat. But the Coast Guard was there doing everything they could. It took the next day until the big cutters came in from Oahu. But that night, the small Coast Guard response team was there.
Are you amazed, Riley, when you start to hear stories later on that the sirens didn't go off, that people are getting pigeonholed into Lahaina? That's literally, it looks like it was a flamethrower went off in Lahaina. And to think that it was going to come down to brave men and women like yourself, just everyday folks, to spring into action to save your fellow neighbors.
No, we never ever thought we'd be playing this role in an emergency crisis like this. However, we knew that if there was an emergency crisis, we would do everything we could. We have vessels. It's one of the safest places it can be sometimes. It can generate power. We have water. We're mobile. We knew that, you know, if given the option, we'd absolutely use our resources for good. But in one sense, no, I'm not surprised. Lahaina is an ancient historic town. It's a beautiful town. I grew up going there my entire life. One of the main factors was that the wind that day blew down the cell phone towers. And unfortunately, I don't believe there was a redundant cell phone tower plan, because that could have got noticed out to people, perhaps. But between the wind blowing on the cell phone and the power being out, we're used to those sorts of things happening. And we just kind of, you know, deal with it, I guess, the island community. And sadly, in this situation, I don't think anybody could have been ready for this, to be honest. You know, the way that the fire came in my direction, the wind blew. Well, I'm a captain. I'm used to wind going a certain direction. This one switched all of a sudden, and it blew right across the town. And you see the results now.
Well, Riley, I'm so grateful for you spending some time with us. I'm grateful for all you did to save others. God bless you for that. And don't forget to take care of yourself. Don't forget to take care of yourself and your family, Riley, because I'm sure you guys are hurting too. Our prayers are with you.
Here's the next thing you guys got to know is that our island, while many people lost their homes, and it's tragic and we're grieving, if we're not careful, the rest of the people are going to lose their homes too, because the jobs are going to be out. And we need to, there's been messages out there saying Maui is not open, and there's a lot of truth in that, but there's also a lot of areas that were completely unaffected. And if we're not careful, our economy relies on the visitor industry, whether you like it or not. And we're going to see many, many people losing their homes now due to the other effects of this terrible tragedy.
That would be very, very sad. Riley, I appreciate you coming on tonight. And I want to give a little message, folks, as we let Riley go. I want to give a little message to the government leaders on Maui. Let the planes come in. You do have other areas where there are hotels there. They need the tourist stuff right now. You can block it off. Don't go rubbernecking through these towns when people are grieving. You don't need tourists running around these burnt out areas. but you do need money coming into that island. And I think government officials are trying to stop everybody, including the media, from coming in. What are they hiding? A teacher from a school in the center of the town of Lahaina that was burned down, he lost his house as well to the fires. Kamanu Kahai Alai is with us. Kumo Kamau Nahai Ali. I am sorry if I botched your name, sir, especially at a time like this. You got a nickname for me?
Grant, I won't hold it against you.
I am so sorry, sir.
Everybody
can you tell me what... Kumo, can you tell me, what are you going through right now? You lost your house, the school you worked at. What is this like?
Yeah, we're still in the recovery stage, a little bit in the days. We're still trying to get our bearings. But yeah, I think near and dear to my heart, it's always been about the kids. And so every time I hear another story about one more child having been found in the ruins who didn't make it out, it really, it's a little emotional for me, because that's just one more child I'll never get to see or teach again.
Yeah. Kumo, I'm convinced there's going to be far greater numbers in the death toll right now that continues to climb every day. That has to be so hard. And then you look around the island that you loved, and much of it just absolutely devastated. And then you hear word that the governor wants to come in and let the state buy the land. What is your response to that?
Yeah, well, not for sale, not even to the governor.
Yeah. How are the people doing there? Is the help they need, are they getting it?
Really good question. And it depends on who you ask. You know, a lot of the people that have been displaced have been fortunate enough to find some of the hotels that were willing to take them in and provide them some temporary shelter. Of course, we don't know how long that's going to last. We still need to hear some narrative that says that the hotels are working closely with FEMA or other government officials to determine whether or not those displaced families can stay there 3 months, 6 months. We have no idea. So even for ourselves, we're fine for now, but eventually we're going to have to up and relocate again as we engage this long-term recovery process with rebuilding Lahaina town.
Kumo, can I ask you, what is it like? You lose your house, everything you work for in there. Have you been back to the site of your home?
We actually did go back on the site, and it was an emotional moment. We raised our kids in that home, a lot of memories, but all of it is just ash. I did put up a couple of posts on my Facebook account just to let everybody know, because the world wants to know. And unfortunately, not enough information or vital information is being shared with the world. So it makes everybody frustrated, because we're all grieving through this process together. However, I'll say this, that there are some people in the community who are rallying, and they're not waiting for government intervention. They're out there running water, food, and supplies to and from areas where they're needed the most, where people are not getting those resources.
Yeah. I'm really concerned, Kumo, because I've heard words from fellow members of the media that says they're being blocked from coming in. Transparency seems to be non-existent from government officials, from communication managers there, from the leaders of this island and the state. Communication's really lacking when people want to know what's going on. And I think this is a time when people are scared. Thank God we have Hawaiians, neighbors that are willing to step up in this time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you guys were here on the ground in the communities that have all of this buzz of activity going on, you'd really be impressed that it's all grassroots. It's all community driven. And many out in those areas are asking, where is the government support? We do see a lot of media along the highway. Many of them are trying to get in, but they can't. We don't know the reasons. One particular reason we heard was for their own personal safety. They don't want media close to the impact zones because the area is still relatively unsafe to be near.
Yeah. I will tell you, for most of the national media, well, something I worked in for a while. I'm ashamed to say I worked in national media until I came into this type of media. They know what they're doing, how to keep themselves safe. This is often a way for governments to keep eyes, the public's eyes, off of what's really going on. And that's what we got to be careful of. Kumba, I'm going to tell you something. I'm so impressed with your strength. I can see how hard this is for you, not knowing what children made it and what didn't, and your friends who did and who didn't. And yet you come on and share your story with us. God bless you, sir. And we are with you and the people of Maui.
God bless you. Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you. All right, folks. Look, that's the real story of America. That's a story you don't get anywhere else, because that's why I love this country, because we have people like that, like Riley and that gentleman. All right, folks, some interesting things have come out about Fulton DA Fani Willis. We'll get to that next. Some very interesting things. Well, folks, I want to give you some insight into who is Fani Willis, this radical, deranged district attorney who just charged President Trump and 19 others in Fulton County, Georgia. Not only is she the daughter of a former Black Panther, that should tell you all you need to know about her political ideology, but let's go back to 2021, when she not only endorsed, but fundraised for a Democrat friend of hers running against a Republican she targeted in a criminal probe. So she clearly has a history of using her office in an effort to rig elections.
I am here today to ask you to please help support my friend Charlie Bailey, who is running for Attorney General. Attorney General is the state's top prosecutor. Mr. Bailey is dedicated to community.
See what she does? She's out there endorsing this guy and targeting with a criminal case the opponent. She apparently also hid her prior relationship as the defense attorney for the founder of one of Atlanta's most notorious street gangs. Yet she found it okay to prosecute its members without disclosing the clear conflict of interest. President Trump talked about that.
They say there's a young woman, a young racist in Atlanta. She's a racist. And they say, I guess they say that she was after a certain gang and she ended up having an affair with the head of the gang or a gang member. And this is a person that wants to indict me. She's got a lot of problems, but she wants to indict me to try and run for some other office.
Well, as you know now, Mr. President, she most certainly did indict you and 19 others for tweeting to tell people to watch TV, which is literally insanity. Also literally, on the eve of that much anticipated indictment of President Trump, do you believe she sent out an email announcing the launch of her re-election campaign? Who does this? A Democrat, I guess. It reads, "Friend, we wanted you to know first that our new website is up and ready for you to share with your friends and family. Sign up to volunteer, host an event, blah, 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 blah." I don't need to read any more of it. So that is her. Don't forget, not only did she leak parts of the indictment before the grand jury even ruled on it, she leaked it out. But she continuously bragged about her investigation into President Trump.
Since we've opened this, my security has doubled. We've gotten a lot of comments. Interestingly enough, the comments are always racist. And it's really just a waste of time and foolishness. It's not going to stop me from doing my job.
You haven't done your job. You've never done your job. And the only racist we should be talking about is her. She's the racist. She hates freedom. I guarantee you. Joining me now, former chief of staff to the acting secretary of defense under President Donald Trump. He's also the author of the upcoming book, Government Gangsters, available for pre-order now. Our very good friend, Kash Patel, is back with us. Kash, welcome.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Grant. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad I didn't read your name in this indictment, Kash. I don't know. I even Googled to see if my name was in it. I don't know. Maybe they'd mention me from over at that other network sometime.
It's coming. It's coming. They just have to get the others out of the way.
What do you make of? Yeah, we do. But, who knows in this world, sadly. What do you make of Fani Willis? This woman is just so out of line and so partisan.
Well, let's just put the legality aside. That's my background, national security prosecutor, public defender. And let's just show people a get out of jail free card if you live in Fulton County and are governed by this corrupt prosecutor. All you have to do is become a gang member and sleep with her, and then you get a get out of jail free card. I mean, this is the woman that is prosecuting the presidential nominee for the Republican Party to be president again in 2024. Then there's the illegality of her acts. Forget the indictment itself. Every single state prohibits by law the disclosure of grand jury information unless authorized by a judge with a signature. Any action in contravention of that is a felony. She released the transcript, the indictment, identical copy, not 6 seconds before she took to the podium, 6 hours. And when she was confronted upon it at her nighttime, 5 minutes of fame there announcing the Trump indictment, she lied to the world when she says, I don't know how the clerk of the courts work. This is a district attorney whose name is on every single charging document in that district by law. It is literally her job to process the paperwork through the courtroom. So I think Donald Trump's lawyers need to start right there at the illegality of the disclosure of grand jury information, which should toss the case in its entirety.
All right, so you believe that even if she was convicted of this and convicted of the felony of leaking grand jury information, it would negate President Trump's entire case and the other 19 others?
That's the way the law works. Look, I'll analogize it to stuff everybody watching your show has seen. We've all seen murder mysteries and cops and robbers movies, and where there's an overreach, a breaking of the Fourth Amendment, and a search warrant is applied for incorrectly. It doesn't matter if you find the videotape, the guns, the fruit of the ill-gotten gains and proceeds. The case gets tossed because the Constitution comes first. Now, I'm not saying in this instance that what she charged Donald Trump with is actually illegal conduct. It's totally not. It's a bogus charade.
Right.
But couple that with the fact that she illegally started this investigation and charging document, the law demands that not only she be reprimanded and prosecuted and sent to prison, but the entire charging document is nullified.
All right. So I hate even defending these indictments because almost like it gives the legitimacy. But the reality is we're going to have to go in front of a judge and going to have to defend it. So we might as well. Mark Meadows, President Trump's former chief of staff, how dare he try to observe vote counting in Cobb County? How dare he ask for phone numbers of leaders of the legislature? They're charged with this, like President Trump saying, hey, watch another network out there or tune into TV, and he's charged with this. He says it should be in federal court. I don't think it should be a kangaroo court. I don't think it should be in any court. But does he have a play here to move this to federal court, and what does that do?
Not only him, every single one of the 19 co-defendants should be demanding this case go to federal court. Look, jurisdiction is the law of every state and the federal jurisdictions across the United States. You can either bring a case in state court or federal court, and you can't bring them in both. And in this instance, this prosecutor, Fani Willis, has admitted in her indictment that the violations of law governing the RICO statute she baselessly applied regard federal law enforcement. That is a federal crime. So she has misfiled the case. And I think Chief of Staff Meadows has come in and appropriately requested a federal judge review that matter. Now, she's also said she wants to try all 19 co-defendants inside of 6 months. That is a complete and total farce, which shows the intention by which she brought this case. These cases take 2 to 4 years at a minimum to adjudicate. And now that we have this federal jurisdiction issue going on, it's going to take months before the case even starts in federal court. So there is no way this case goes to trial before the election unless the state of Georgia and its county in Fulton County rigged the presidential election and the judicial system to try Donald Trump ahead of time, which they might do.
Cash, I have friends here in Dallas, wealthy friends, albeit, but their divorces take longer than 2 to 4 years. How are you going to get 19 defendants through in 2 to 4 years? She's dreaming. It would never happen, and I don't think the defense attorneys would ever let it happen. What would be your advice to President Trump right now, facing all of these indictments, all of the craziness? We know it's helping the campaign. What do you tell him to do right now?
I tell him what I've always told him, whether it's the indictment in New York, D.C., Miami, Georgia, and wherever the next kangaroo court cycle is going to come from. The American people are seeing the two-tier system of justice at play. No longer is it a right-wing conspiracy. The people that were lied to for 5 years, who were told by CNN that Donald Trump's a Russian asset, now know they were lied to. The people that were lied to about Hunter Biden's and his corrupt scandals with his father overseas now know they were lied to. The 51 Intel letter, rigging a presidential election by the fake news media and the intelligence agency, now know they were lied to, but it's for the same mapping that they've done for everything, a two-tier system of justice, be it in the courts, in the judicial system, in the executive branch, in the intelligence community, and on the bench of the judicial federal circuit. So the American public is seeing it. And as Donald Trump has said over and over again, they're coming after you. He's just in the way. Yeah. And now everybody is being able to relate to this. And they're going to say, wait a second, I don't want my neighbor, my parents, my friends to be targeted by a weaponized DOJ at the state and federal level because I said something nice about Donald Trump, or I voted for Donald Trump, or I said something bad about Joe Biden. That's what's happening here. And that is going to be a massive amount of voters that go to Trump.
You know, I'm not just saying this. As I listen to you talk about President Trump and all of us being targets, I literally get a pit in my stomach. It physically makes me ill what's going on in this country today. But I am grateful, Cash. There's people like you out there, Steve Bannon, the people that watch Real America's Voice, Stinchfield's Army. We win in the end, right? Last word.
We do. It's going to be a rough year. And this is the turnout. Everybody who's going to come at me and you, everybody else, and say, why didn't you guys do more? Now it's your turn to step up. Do you want your kids to grow up in a free and safe America, a drug-free zone, a secure border? Do you want China and Russia to be second to the United States of America yet again? All of that pivots on one thing: Donald J. Trump becoming the next president and destroying the two-tier system of justice.
It has to happen. And as you say, it will be up to all of us, not just the TV pundits, not just the political consultants, not just the candidates, all of us. Kash Patel.
Absolutely.
Always great seeing you, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great evening.
Absolutely. Don't forget about his book, Government Gangsters, coming out very soon. Coming up after the break, the left is pushing the fat acceptance movement. And they also say that being fat is totally healthy. Well, I think even overweight people know that's false, don't they? Not Lizzo, apparently. We'll talk about all this next. Welcome back, everyone. I want you to take a look at this headline. I saw it in Cosmopolitan. Okay, Cosmopolitan is a magazine. I used to get insight to the female other side when you read it on the beach, right? You're with somebody on the beach, but this is no insight. Fat is healthy? Fat is not healthy, okay? Not healthy at all. This is what happens when the public becomes coddled by political correctness. The great example of this is Lizzo. Lizzo, the singer, entertainer, who's wildly popular, is obese. And I have friends that I love that struggle with their weight. And I'm here to say you got to get it under control. Do not believe Cosmopolitan when they tell you it is healthy. It is about life or death. But Lizzo goes with this and the media runs with it. Cut two.
I just finished showering and doing my little routine, and you know what I realized? I am gorgeous. I am the beauty standard. Catch up.
So it sounds totally harsh and rough to say, but you're not the beauty standard. You can feel good about yourself and all you want, but the reality is you will get diabetes, you will get heart disease, you will have your arteries clogged, you will die earlier than someone that is in shape. That is not the beauty standard. Yet she doubles down.
Do we realize that artists are not here to fit into your beauty standards? Artists are here to make art. And this body is art. And I'm gonna do whatever I want with this body.
We've made it so acceptable that I have to walk through the mall now, and I see overweight mannequins in Victoria's Secret. I'm sorry, but nobody wants to see that. Give somebody something to strive for, work hard for, because in the end, it is about life and death, and I mean it. I'm not trying to be mad here. I'm not trying to fat shame anybody. What I'm saying is you got to get it under control or you're going to die. One of the founders of the Functional Medical Institute is my next guest. He's a guy who's in great shape himself. Dr. Mark Sherwood is with us. Doc, it's great to see you.
Good to see you too, Grant. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Look, I could be mean. I could go off on a tangent about fat this, fat, and I don't want to be, because I have a very good buddy who ran a business that I invested in who was grossly overweight, and I said, what is your succession plan? Because you could have a heart attack at any moment. This is real, and yet the media tells us fat is healthy?
No, the statistics bear it out too. Just today, I was looking at statistics in preparation for our time, and it is estimated that 42% of adults right now in our great nation are obese. And on top of that, 30% are considered overweight. So that means that more than 2/3 of America is either overweight or obese. We are the most unhealthy nation on planet Earth. Obesity is the fastest growing disease that's non-communicable, I might add, of all time. And Grant, it's killing more people every day. And the more we accept this, the more we normalize it, the more we advocate it and even encourage it, we're actually encouraging people to what I consider commit elongated, self-imposed suicide. And it's not okay. With juveniles now, kids, 20% of adolescents right now are obese, and that trend is growing. I see people in my office, and it's heartbreaking, people that are under 18 that are already insulin resistant. And we're doing it to each other. We're doing it to ourselves. Right. And look, it's not fat shaming at all. It's loving people to say, let's get it better, because we've got to stand for righteousness.
I want to tell people out there, and I know there's going to be people watching this that may be overweight, and they're going to see like, oh, come on, Grant, you're really now, you're lecturing me on this. I'm going to tell them, I was 190 pounds, not obese by any means, but I wasn't in great shape. I lost 30 pounds doing P90X, eating right. I got a little too thin. I feel like I'm in a good spot right now, but the bottom line is it can be done. You can do anything you want if you put your mind to it, but not if you have doctors like this guy surrounding you. Listen to this doctor.
It may be that in some ways having more fat may help a person be able to fight a disease. If someone's already normal weight, or even worse if they're underweight, they just don't have the reserve. It's not doomsday, that if they don't lose those last 20 or 30 pounds, they can still be very healthy, particularly if they keep themselves out of the low fitness category.
Dr. Sherwood, they were putting guys, taking their license away for prescribing ivermectin. That guy ought to be put in jail.
Yeah, I find that very troubling. And let us understand that for people listening right now, health is not equated with what the scale says. Health is really about what your body fat percentage says. And for men, I like it somewhere between about 10 and about 15 to 16. For women, I like the percent body fat somewhere between 18 and about 24.
Wait. 10 to 15%. You know how good shape you got to be in to be at 10 to 15%. I'm in pretty good shape, and I think I'm like at 16 or 17.
That's great, though. You know, we've all got room for improvement. It's like, you know, we've got to set our standard. You mentioned standards. We've got to set our standards at a place that is excellent, you know, and we cannot ever accept a bar of acceptance to be a D level and say it's okay, because we'll only go as far as the leaders take us. And, you know, yeah, we set our standards high, but that doesn't mean we don't love people that are working their way there. We're trying to all achieve the same thing, which is try to have more quality of life within our years.
The thyroid excuse, real quick, is that legit? I always say, I don't buy it.
Interestingly enough, there's a connection between obesity and hypothyroidism. Very quickly, the more we get obese, the more the fat tissue secretes a hormone called leptin. Leptin can get so aggressively secreted in our body that it actually causes leptin resistance, which leads to hypothyroid function, which connects to more obesity. So actually, obesity is the contributing factor to the low thyroid function.
Wow. They got it backwards, I guess.
Yeah.
Dr. Mark Sherwood, I appreciate you coming on and sharing some thoughts on this. I really do think it's an important topic that actually, in the end, could save lives.
Yeah, it is indeed important. Hopefully we'll do better, and we don't need to be the leading nation in this category.
Absolutely. Good seeing you, my friend. Thank you. All right, folks, Joe Biden had a no good, very bad, horrible day. What was the book? The No Good, Very Bad, Horrible Day, something like this. Well, that was Joe Biden yesterday. I'll break it down for you. I got the name of the book. Alexander, A Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. I loved that book until I started to realize that's Joe Biden's life as president every day. Well, yesterday was a very bad day for him. It started out like this.
President Joe Biden, y'all.
No Joe.
Well, I'm a little underwhelmed, aren't you all? I think I messed up.
For 2.5 years, we've been underwhelmed. Apparently, I heard what happened was he didn't get his Adderall. They gave him his nightly melatonin instead, so he was sleeping there. So that was embarrassing, but okay, that stuff happens. But then he goes down the same road of reminiscing about what, Joe Biden?
But then, when I signed the bipartisan infrastructure again, which...
No, wait. The bipartisan... one more time, please, guys, if you can.
But then, when I signed the bipartisan infrastructure again, which...
I mean, he cannot speak. And that is supposed to be the leader of the United States of America. So he forgets to come out to the speech. Then when he comes out, not only does he forget how to speak, forget about the speech, he forgets how to speak. But then when he finally starts to get his words out, he brings up the Amtrak story. Do you remember this Amtrak story? Joey, baby, you got 1,000,000 miles. Listen.
And this guy, I won't mention his name because I will get him in trouble, but one of the senior guys in Amtrak who I rode with all the time comes up and goes, Joey, baby, grabs my cheek. Swear to God, I thought they were going to shoot him. And I said, no. I said, what's the matter, Angie? He said, I read this thing about over 1,000,000 miles on Air Force planes. He said, hell, you know how many miles you travel on Amtrak? I said, no, Angie, I don't know. He said, we just had a retirement dinner up in Newark. He said, you travel average 117 days a year, round trip, 300 miles a day, 36 years. That's 1,285,000 miles. I don't want to hear any more about the Air Force.
Folks, he's talking about when he was riding Amtrak as vice president, okay? Angelo, who he said, I'm not going to name his name, and then he names him twice there. By the way, I believe he's dead, rest in soul, nice conductor man. If he even exists, there was some guy that is dead now. But he was already retired when Joe Biden was vice president. I've debunked this story about 4 times already, and yet he continues to tell it, which to me is a clear and utter sign of dementia. But then he repeats another debunked story. This is the same speech, folks, about that horrible bridge collapse in Pittsburgh. Apparently, he knew it was coming. What?
By the way, Pittsburgh is a city of bridges, more bridges in Pittsburgh than any other city in America. I watched that bridge collapse. I got there and saw it collapse with over 200 feet off the ground, going over a valley. And it collapsed. Thank God school was out.
Thank God school was out? What do you mean? I mean, if school was in, the kids would be in school, and there'd be nobody going over the bridge. School is out, maybe you'd have kids going over the bridge. And by the way, you watched it collapse? So you knew it was going to happen, and you didn't tell anybody? You made a trip to go watch the bridge collapse. No, of course not. All of it is a lie. It's made up nonsense as he goes, and the people in the room clap and say, oh, isn't this great? So it continues. Now, this is all in one speech. Remember, I told you the horrible, no good, very bad day. Joe Biden on Bidenomics, cut 5.
The Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal started calling my plan not initially as a compliment to Bidenomics. But guess what, folks? They're talking about it differently now. It's working. It's working. I'm serious.
It's working. I think gas is still twice what it was when he took office. The stock market was a disaster today, by the way. Inflation is back on the rise. How is Bidenomics working? And just for fun, because I broadcast from Texas, And though I'm not the biggest fan of Governor Greg Abbott, but if you're going to level an insult on him, you better be truthful about it. Roll that.
Texas, the state of Texas, a very enlightened governor. The very state of Texas has the significant highest number of wind and solar facilities, I think, of any state in the nation. And it's cheaper than fossil fuel. He wants to shut them down. Isn't that enlightened?
Take them down? Nobody's talking about taking down wind and solar. All we're talking about in Texas is that, hey, it can't sustain this great state of ours. We need fossil fuels. We need natural gas. We need oil. We need it all. And we're happy to take the wind and solar. And notice what he said. We have the most wind and solar in the country. I don't know if that's true or not. I can't believe Joe Biden, but it's a nice compliment for Texas. This guy's so out. And by the way, he ended his day going up the small steps into Air Force One. The small steps. That's not the leader of the free world does that. Folks, this is the reason why I tell you to literally protect yourself with gold. So you know my friends over at Birch Gold can help you do it. I mentioned inflation is back on the rise. And I mentioned the stock market is back on the demise. I mentioned gas prices are out of control. I mentioned we have a leader in the White House who's totally out to lunch with dementia. Lord knows what our enemies are going to do to take advantage of his idiocy. So you better protect your finances, all right? How do you do it? Go to my friends at Birch Gold. Text America to the number 989898. That's America to the number 989898. And my friends over at Birch Gold can help you take the steps necessary to start putting some of your money into precious metals. You can even do a precious metals IRA, retirement account, but it is about safety and security. America to the number 989898. So many of our viewers are going to Birch Gold, and we're thankful for that. All right, folks. The Fulton County clerk came up with an explanation for publishing the Trump charging document before the grand jury even weighed in on it. What was her excuse? That's next.
Here are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets at offthepress.com. Nearly 3 years after the 2020 election, we are still learning about voter fraud in key battleground states. In Michigan, the Attorney General just said that an investigation into 10,000 voters was forwarded to the FBI. It wouldn't have changed the outcome, however, between Trump and Biden. Democrats have a new reason to dump President Biden. Many believe that the sour economy would be better if he's defeated, presumably by a Republican, and likely Donald Trump. North Korea has acknowledged that it has AWOL Army Private Travis King and says he bolted across the border because he faced racism and inequality back home. And we might have a reason for why former NFL star Michael Oher, the subject of the Blind Side movie, is being so nasty to his adoptive family. He's trying to promote a book and needs attention-grabbing headlines. For stories like these and more updates all day long from your favorite news outlets, go to offthepress.com.
So we talked earlier today about Fani Willis, the devious district attorney, releasing the charging documents 6 hours before she gives a news conference, that alone is a felony. Well, the county clerk was asked about how does something like that happen. Listen.
I did a work sample in the system, and when I hit save, it went to the press queue. It wasn't an official document. It wasn't official charges. It was a dry run. It was a work sample.
A work sample. Do you believe her? I don't. I believe she's the fall girl for all of that. They wanted the media aware of what was about to happen so it could be there at 12 o'clock at night when this indictment came down. All very, very sad. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. I so appreciate you watching. Don't forget my podcast, GrantStinchfield.com. You can go there for all the links to subscribe to the podcast, the Rumble videos as well, GrantStinchfield.com. I've got a great podcast up about the real story behind active shooters. All right, so go check that out. Folks, thank you so much for watching. We are back here tomorrow night. As always, Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks to all of you. See you tomorrow, folks.